Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive.
It's great to be back.
Today, we are going to be doing a deep dive into grammar and mechanics.
Ah,
Now, before you click away thinking it's going to be boring.
yeah, this is the stuff that people skip over.
I know, right?
It's like, oh no, not grammar.
But we are going to try to make this as interesting as we can.
Absolutely.
And look at this. Not as just boring, dusty old rules.
Yeah, nobody wants to learn the rule.
But really as tools that can make your writing better.
For sure, tools that can make your writing shine and make a huge impact on your readers.
So no matter what kind of writing you do, whether you're writing, novels,
Blog posts.
screenplays,
Emails even.
emails, yeah, even emails.
Anything you write.
This stuff is going to help you.
Yeah.
And you know what I think is interesting about this is we're going to look at it from the writer's perspective as well as the teacher's perspective.
That's right, because so often it's like we're just trying to get the students to follow the rules, but why? What's the point?
Right, yeah. So
And how can we make it more engaging for them?
exactly. And I think that's what is so cool about the book we're looking at today.
Mechanically inclined.
Mechanically Inclined by Jeff Anderson.
Jeff Anderson, yeah, he's got some great ideas.
So for this deep dive, this is our main source, Mechanically Inclined.
And I think one of the things that he really emphasizes is moving away from that kind of drill and kill method of teaching grammar.
Like
Worksheets and
worksheets, diagrams, just
memorizing rules.
wrote memorization.
Right.
And instead, he really stresses the importance of context.
Yes, and teaching grammar and mechanics through the lens of craft.
So thinking about it, how can we use these tools to actually make our writing better?
And more interesting and more effective.
More effective, right. And I think one of the best ways to do that is by looking at mentor texts.
Absolutely. Yep.
Looking at examples of writing that we admire.
And that students admire.
From authors that we love.
Right, and seeing how they use these tools.
Yeah. Seeing, oh, that's what a semicolon does, or wow, that's how you use an appositive.
And it makes it so much more real for them than just seeing it on a worksheet.
It's not just an abstract concept anymore. It's like, oh, I see how this works in real life.
And it can make my own writing better.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so important is that it's not just about being correct. It's about using these tools to actually create something.
To create meaning and to create an effect.
Exactly.
And I think that's what's so exciting about this approach.
So Jeff Anderson talks about this concept of context.
Hmm.
What do you think of when you hear the word context?
Well, I guess I think about the surrounding information, the bigger picture.
Yeah, like if you're reading a book, it's the whole book. Or if you're reading an article, it's the whole article, right?
Right.
But Anderson defines context as any chunk of meaning.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it could be a sentence.
Yeah, a sentence could have its own context.
A paragraph.
A paragraph, definitely.
That's
Chapter even.
Yeah. And so when we're teaching grammar and mechanics, he encourages us to look at these chunks of meaning and really analyze how the grammar and mechanics are working within that specific context.
So instead of just looking at a sentence in isolation, you look at it in the context of the paragraph or the page.
Exactly. And you can say, okay, how is this comma being used here? What is its purpose?
Or why did the author choose to use a semicolon instead of a period?
Right. And what effect does that have on the reader?
And I think that's so important because it helps students to see that grammar and mechanics are not just arbitrary rules.
Right.
They're choices that writers make to create a specific effect.
And that's what makes them so powerful.
And that's what makes them so interesting.
So one of the things that Anderson recommends is starting each class with what he calls writer's secrets.
Oh, I like that.
I know it sounds kind of mysterious,
It does a little bit.
but it's really just sharing a well-written snippet from a mentor text.
Oh, so it's like a little peek behind the curtain.
Exactly. And the idea is to expose students to good writing
Yeah, to show them what's possible.
and to get them thinking about how the author is using grammar and mechanics to create a specific effect.
To achieve their purpose.
Right. And so maybe you share a sentence that has an interesting use of punctuation.
Like a really well-placed dash.
Or maybe a sentence that has a really powerful verb.
Or a sentence that uses an appositive in a really creative way.
And you can talk about why the author made those choices
What effect they have.
and how students can use those same techniques in their own writing.
And I love that because it's not just telling them the rule, it's showing them the rule in action.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, I see how that works now.
Right. And it's also a great way to start a conversation about writing.
It gets them thinking and talking about craft.
And it's a fun way to start the class.
It's like a little writing warm-up.
So Anderson also talks about the importance of having an editor's checklist.
Okay, yeah. Checklists can be helpful.
But not the kind of checklist that you just photocopy and hand out to students.
Right, those are usually pretty generic.
Yeah, they're not very engaging.
And they don't really mean anything to the students.
Right, so Anderson suggests creating an organic editor's checklist.
What does that mean, an organic checklist?
So it's a checklist that grows out of the student's own writing and research.
Oh, I see. So it's tailored to their specific needs.
Exactly. So as you're teaching grammar and mechanics and you're looking at mentor texts,
You can start to identify common errors that your students are making.
or areas where they need more support.
And then you can work together to create a checklist that addresses those specific issues.
So maybe you notice that a lot of your students are having trouble with commas.
Yeah, comma splices are a big one.
Right. Or maybe they're not sure when to use a semicolon.
Or they're putting apostrophes in the wrong places.
So you could create a checklist item that says, check for comma splices.
Make sure your semicolons are joining independent clauses.
Use apostrophes correctly to show possession.
And then the students can use that checklist when they're editing their own work.
And it becomes a lot more meaningful because they've been part of the process of creating it.
And they know why those items are on the checklist.
Right. It's not just some random list of rules.
It's a tool that they've helped to create.
And that they can use to make their writing better.
And Anderson also talks about the difference between things that should go on the checklist and things that should go on wall charts.
Okay, what's the difference?
So the checklist is for things that students can actively check for in their own writing.
So things like capitalization,
Commas,
subject-verb agreement.
things like that.
And then wall charts are for things that are more like reference materials.
Okay.
So things like compound sentence patterns,
Okay.
verb tense charts,
Things that they can refer to if they need a reminder.
or if they're not sure about something.
Right. And so the idea is that the checklist is something that they use actively when they're editing.
And the wall charts are more passive resources that they can consult if they need to. And I think it's important to point out that Anderson believes that all of these rules of grammar and mechanics, they all have a purpose.
Right. They're not just arbitrary.
Yeah, they're not just there to make our lives difficult.
They're there to help us to communicate more effectively.
Exactly. And so when we're teaching grammar and mechanics, it's important to help students understand that,
Yeah, to see the purpose behind the rule.
to see how these conventions can actually help them to be better writers.
And to be better communicators.
And that's why it's so important to teach grammar and mechanics in the context of real writing.
Right, because that's how they're used in the real world.
So one of the techniques that Anderson recommends is called express lane editing.
Express lane editing. That sounds interesting.
So the idea is to start with a free write.
Okay, so just getting all your ideas down on paper.
Exactly. No worries about grammar or mechanics, just getting your thoughts out there.
That's the fun part.
And then once you have your free write, you can start to edit it. But the key here is to be focused.
Focused editing?
So instead of just reading through your free write and trying to catch every error,
You pick one thing to focus on.
you choose one specific grammar or mechanics concept.
Okay.
Maybe it's commas,
Or maybe it's subject-verb agreement,
or maybe it's pronoun clarity,
and you just focus on that one thing.
and you go through your free write and you look for errors related to that concept.
And you correct them.
And Anderson suggests that teachers model this process for students.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So the teacher would do a think aloud edit of their own free write.
So the students can see how it's done.
Exactly. And the teacher would verbalize their thought process.
So they might say, okay, I see a comma splice here. I need to fix that.
Or, I'm not sure if this pronoun is clear. I need to check the antecedent.
And the students can see how the teacher is using the editor's checklist.
And how they're applying the grammar and mechanics concepts that they've been learning.
And then the students can do the same thing with their own free writes.
And what's really cool is that you can actually cue students to focus on a specific convention before they even start writing.
Oh, that's interesting.
So if you're going to be doing express lane editing on commas,
You could say, okay, today, as you're free writing, I want you to pay attention to your comma usage.
and then when they go back to edit their work, they'll be more aware of those commas.
And they'll be more likely to catch any errors
And I think that's a really powerful way to help students develop their editing skills.
because it's focused, it's deliberate.
And it's based on their own writing.
So we talked about wall charts earlier,
Yes, we did.
and Anderson really emphasizes their importance as teaching tools.
Absolutely.
They're like visual aids that you can refer to throughout the year.
Exactly. So if you're reading a mentor text and you come across a sentence that has a great example of a compound sentence
You can point to the compound sentence wall chart.
and say, look, here's how that works.
Or if a student is having trouble with subject-verb agreement,
You can direct them to the verb tense chart.
and they can see the patterns right there in front of them.
And the more you refer to these wall charts, the more students will internalize the information.
It becomes part of their writing vocabulary.
And it makes them more confident writers.
And Anderson says that you shouldn't put up all the wall charts at once.
Right.
It's better to introduce them gradually
As you teach the concept
and then revisit them often.
so that the information stays fresh.
Now, what about when students make errors?
Well, Anderson says that we should try to look behind the error.
What does that mean?
It means trying to understand the student's thinking.
Okay.
Why did they make that mistake?
What were they trying to do?
What were their pseudo-concepts?
What are pseudo-concepts?
So pseudo-concepts are those almost right understandings that students have.
Oh.
So maybe they have a rule in their head that's not quite accurate.
Like you always need a comma before the word and.
Right. Or you always need to capitalize the first letter of every word in a title.
And so they apply that rule even when it's not appropriate.
And so when we look behind the error, we can start to see those pseudo-concepts.
And we can help students to correct them.
And Anderson says that mentor texts can be really helpful for this
How so?
because they show the error in another light.
The light of correctness.
The light of correctness, exactly.
So if a student is making a mistake with commas,
You can show them an example from a mentor text where the comma is used correctly
and you can talk about why the comma is used there,
and how it affects the meaning of the sentence
and that can help the student to see their own error more clearly.
and to understand how to fix it.
So let's talk about some specific sentence-level elements,
Okay.
starting with fragments.
Fragments.
Now, everyone knows that the fragment is an incomplete sentence,
Right. It's missing a subject or a verb
or both.
or both.
But Anderson points out that sometimes writers use fragments intentionally.
For effect.
For effect, yeah, like to create a certain rhythm or to emphasize a point.
Right.
And he says that's fine, as long as the writer knows what they're doing.
Right. As long as it's a deliberate choice
But he also says that it's important for students to master complete sentences first,
before they start experimenting with fragments.
because otherwise they might be writing fragments unintentionally.
And that can make their writing sound choppy and confusing.
So fragments can be a good tool, but only if you know how to use them properly.
Okay, what about run-on sentences?
Run-on sentences, those are fun.
Those are when you have two or more independent clauses.
Clauses that could stand alone as sentences.
Right, and they're just kind of crammed together.
With no punctuation or with the wrong punctuation.
Right, and Anderson says that run-on sentences often happen because students are so excited about their ideas,
They're just trying to get them all down on paper.
and they don't want to stop to think about punctuation.
And that's understandable.
Yeah, it's great to have that enthusiasm.
But it's also important to learn how to control it
To learn how to break down those long, rambling sentences.
into clearer, more manageable units.
And that's where punctuation comes in.
So let's talk about dangling modifiers.
Dangling modifiers, what are those?
Well, a dangling modifier is a word or phrase that's supposed to describe something.
But it's not clear what it's describing.
Right, it's kind of floating around in the sentence.
Not attached.
Unattached, and it can create some really funny images in the reader's mind.
Like the classic example, walking down the street, a piano fell on my head.
Oh yeah, it sounds like the piano was walking down the street.
Right, and so the problem is that the modifier walking down the street,
Is not clearly attached to the subject,
and so to fix that, you would just need to rephrase the sentence.
so that the modifier is clearly modifying the correct word.
So you could say, as I was walking down the street, a piano fell on my head.
There you go.
Now that makes sense.
And Anderson talks about prepositions.
Well, prepositions.
Those little words like on, in, at, to, from.
And he says that they're actually really important
More important than we might think.
because they create clarity.
They show the relationships between words in a sentence.
And he uses this example from Kinky Friedman.
Oh yeah, I love Kinky Friedman.
Me too. And he rewrites one of Kinky Friedman's sentences.
Taking out all the prepositions.
And it's amazing how much the sentence changes
It becomes much less clear.
and much less interesting.
It loses all its flavor.
And so Anderson's point is that prepositions might seem small.
But they actually play a big role in creating clear and vivid writing.
And what about double negatives?
Double negatives, those are a no-no,
Yeah, they're generally not considered grammatically correct.
although there are some exceptions.
Right, like in informal speech or in dialogue.
Or in certain dialects,
But in formal writing, it's best to avoid them.
because they can be confusing.
Yeah, and they can make your writing sound less polished.
And Anderson gives an example from Bridge to Terabithia,
Oh, yeah.
where one of the characters uses a double negative in their dialogue
And it perfectly captures their voice.
and their personality.
But it's important to note that this is dialogue.
It's not formal writing.
And so in your own writing, it's usually best to stick to the standard rules of grammar,
And avoid double negatives.
unless you have a specific reason to use them.
So Anderson introduces this concept called absolutes,
Absolutes.
and he describes them as close-up camera shots.
I love that analogy.
Me too. It's so vivid.
And it really captures what absolutes do.
So an absolute is basically a noun plus an ing verb.
And it acts like a little modifier phrase.
That adds a detail to the sentence.
And he gives the example, leg going up and down, pencil tapping.
And you can just picture that person.
You can see the leg moving up and down. You can hear the pencil tapping.
It's a little snapshot.
And it adds so much to the sentence.
It gives it more life.
And it's all thanks to the absolute.
So commas can be tricky.
They can be.
There are so many rules.
And so many exceptions.
But Anderson breaks it down into some key principles
that make it a lot easier to understand.
So let's start with compound sentences.
Okay.
A compound sentence is basically two independent clauses joined together.
And the rule is that you need a comma before the conjunction.
That's right. So if you have two sentences that could stand alone,
like the cat sat on the mat and the dog chased its tail.
You can join them together with a comma and a conjunction.
So you could say the cat sat on the mat and the dog chased its tail.
And Anderson gives a great example from Charlotte's Web,
where E.B. White uses a comma perfectly to join two independent clauses.
Now what about comma splices?
Comma splices, those are bad.
Yeah, those are a big no-no.
A comma splice is when you try to join two independent clauses with just a comma.
And no conjunction.
Right, so it'd be like, the cat sat on the mat, the dog chased its tail.
And that's not grammatically correct.
It's confusing for the reader.
Because it's not clear where one sentence ends and the other begins.
And so to fix a comma splice, you need to either add a conjunction
or use a semicolon,
or make it into two separate sentences.
Now, what about commas after openers?
Commas after openers.
So an opener is basically any word, phrase, or clause that comes at the beginning of a sentence.
Before the subject.
Right, and the rule is that you need a comma after an opener.
So if you had a sentence like, after the rain stopped, the sun came out.
You need a comma after stopped.
Because after the rain stopped is the opener.
And that comma signals to the reader that the opener is over.
And the main clause is about to begin.
And that makes the sentence easier to read.
So commas with interrupters.
Interrupters.
An interrupter is basically a word, phrase, or clause.
That interrupts the flow of the sentence.
To add extra information.
Right, and Anderson has this great analogy called the basket test.
The basket test.
So imagine that the sentence is a basket.
And the interrupter is something that you're putting in the basket.
And if you can take the interrupter out of the basket,
and the sentence still makes sense,
then you need commas around the interrupter.
So if you have a sentence like, my dog, a golden retriever, loves to play fetch,
you can take out a golden retriever.
and the sentence still makes sense.
So you need commas around a golden retriever.
Because it's an interrupter.
And Anderson gives an example from The Celery Stalks at Midnight.
Where the author uses commas perfectly to set off an interrupter.
And it makes the sentence so much more clear and readable.
So commas with appositives.
Positives.
And a positive is a word or phrase.
That renames a noun.
And it's usually set off by commas.
Unless it's essential to the meaning of the sentence.
Right, so if you have a sentence like, my sister Sarah is a doctor.
Sarah is the appositive.
Because it's renaming my sister.
And you would usually put commas around Sarah.
Unless it was important to distinguish between multiple sisters.
Like if you had two sisters named Sarah.
Then you wouldn't need the commas.
Because the appositive would be essential to the meaning of the sentence.
And Anderson gives an example from She's Come Undone.
Where the author uses commas effectively to set off an appositive.
And it adds a nice little bit of detail to the sentence.
So what about commas at the end of sentences?
Commas at the end of sentences.
So sometimes you see a comma before a word or phrase that comes at the end of a sentence.
But Anderson says that you only need a comma there if the word or phrase is modifying the clause.
So if you have a sentence like, I went to the store, but I forgot my wallet.
You don't need a comma before, but I forgot my wallet.
Because it's not modifying the clause, I went to the store.
But if you have a sentence like, I went to the store which was closed.
You do need a comma before which was closed.
Because it's modifying the clause, I went to the store.
It's telling us more about the store.
That's why you need the comma.
So let's talk about pronouns.
Pronouns.
Pronouns can be tricky.
They can be.
Because they have to refer back to a noun or pronoun that's already been mentioned.
And if they don't do that clearly.
It can be confusing for the reader.
Yeah, like if you say he went to the store.
But you haven't mentioned who he is.
And the reader's going to be lost.
So the most important thing with pronouns is to make sure that they have clear antecedents.
That means that it's clear what noun or pronoun they're referring back to,
And Anderson gives an example from boy.
where the author uses a pronoun without a clear antecedent.
And it creates a moment of confusion
And then he shows how to fix it.
by adding a clear antecedent.
And that makes the sentence so much more clear.
Now, another thing to watch out for with pronouns is pronoun antecedent agreement.
Pronoun antecedent agreement.
So that means that the pronoun has to agree with its antecedent in number and gender.
Right, so if the antecedent is singular,
The pronoun has to be singular.
and if the antecedent is plural,
The pronoun has to be plural.
and if the antecedent is masculine,
The pronoun has to be masculine.
and if the antecedent is feminine,
The pronoun has to be feminine.
and this can be tricky sometimes,
It can be,
especially when you have collective nouns,
like team or family.
because those nouns can be either singular or plural depending on how you're using them.
And then you also have to watch out for pronoun case errors.
Pronoun case errors,
So that means using the wrong form of the pronoun.
depending on its grammatical function in the sentence,
Right. So you have nominative case pronouns
which are used for the subject of the sentence.
like I, you, he, she, it, we, they,
And then you have objective case pronouns,
which are used for the object of the verb or preposition.
like me, you, him, her, it, us, them,
And then you have possessive case pronouns
which are used to show ownership.
like my, your, his, her, it's our, their.
And it can be easy to get these mixed up,
It can.
especially when you have compound subjects or objects.
Or when you're using pronouns after prepositions,
And Anderson has some good tips for avoiding these errors.
like his take away the guest test.
The take away the guest test.
So if you're not sure which pronoun to use,
Try taking away the other people in the sentence.
and see if the pronoun still sounds right.
So if you're not sure whether to say, me and my friend went to the store,
Or my friend and I went to the store,
take away my friend.
and see which one sounds right.
Me went to the store.
Or I went to the store.
And you can clearly hear that I went to the store is correct.
And then you have possessive apostrophe errors.
Possessive apostrophe errors.
These are so common.
They are.
And they can be really embarrassing.
Because they make you look like you don't know the difference between its and its.
Or whose and whose.
And Anderson has a really simple test for this.
The replace with it is test.
The replace with it is test, exactly.
So if you can replace the word with it is, then you need an apostrophe.
If you can't, then you don't.
So if you're not sure whether to write the dog wagged its tail,
Or the dog wagged its tail.
try replacing its or its with it is.
The dog wagged its tail.
That doesn't make sense.
So you know that you need its without the apostrophe.
And the same goes for whose and whose.
If you can replace the word with who is, then you need an apostrophe.
If you can't, then you don't.
So if you're not sure whether to write, whose book is this?
Or whose book is this?
Try replacing whose or whose with who is.
Whose book is this?
That makes sense.
So you know that you need whose with the apostrophe.
Okay, let's move on to verbs.
Verbs, the action words.
The heart of the sentence.
And one of the most important things to get right with verbs is subject-verb agreement.
Subject-verb agreement.
That means that the verb has to agree with its subject in number.
So if the subject is singular,
The verb has to be singular.
and if the subject is plural,
The verb has to be plural.
and this can be tricky sometimes,
It can.
especially when you have compound subjects.
Or when the subject is separated from the verb by a phrase or clause.
And Anderson has a verb tense chart.
That can be really helpful for visualizing these patterns.
And then another common error is dropped inflectional endings.
Dropped inflectional endings.
This is basically when you drop the ending of a verb.
Usually the ed ending for the past tense.
So instead of writing, I walked to the store,
You might write, I walked to the store.
and that's not grammatically correct.
It sounds like you're talking about the present tense.
Even though you're describing something that happened in the past,
And then there are do and have agreement errors.
do and have agreement errors,
So these are errors with the auxiliary verbs do and have,
which are used to form questions and negative sentences.
and also to form some tenses,
And the rule is that these verbs have to agree with their subject in number.
just like any other verb,
But it can be easy to forget this,
especially when you're using contractions,
like don't and doesn't.
or haven't and hasn't.
And Anderson gives some examples from Surviving the Applewhites,
And Al Capone does my shirts.
where the authors use do and have correctly.
And it helps to illustrate these patterns.
And then finally with verbs, we have unnecessary shifts in tense.
Unnecessary shifts in tense.
So this is when you're switching back and forth between different tenses.
For no apparent reason.
Right. And it can be really confusing for the reader.
Because they don't know what time period you're talking about.
So the general rule is to stick to one tense.
Unless you have a good reason to switch.
Like if you're talking about a flashback.
Or if you're making a hypothetical statement.
And Anderson gives an example from his student's writing.
Where the student is describing their morning routine.
And they keep switching back and forth between present tense and past tense.
And it makes the whole passage really hard to follow.
So let's move on to modifiers.
Modifiers.
Modifiers are words or phrases that describe other words.
And they can be adjectives or adverbs.
And Anderson talks about adjective strings.